Hello Year 7 and welcome to your first lesson online, and we're going to be speaking about neutralisation today. To begin with, I want you to make sure that you've either got your acids and alkalis workbook with you, or if you don't, that you have an exercise book or some paper that you can work on. Please make sure that our date and the title are underlined, and our title is Neutralisation. You are then going to do your do now, which consists of 3 questions. Question 1, draw and label an animal cell. Question 2, what is the pH of a neutral substance? And question 3, what colour does blue litmus paper turn when it comes into contact with an acid? Please can you make sure that you answer these questions in full sentences. Draw your diagrams as you've been taught using a pencil and a ruler. What I want you to do is give yourself 5 minutes, stop the video now and come back once you've completed. Okay, Year 7, let us have a look now at the next slide, which is going to have our answers on there. Right, let's have a very quick look at these answers then. So first of all, we have got the animal cell that you were asked to draw, and as you can see, we've got the cell membrane, the nucleus, and the cytoplasm. There are 2 organelles that aren't shown on there. The first one is the mitochondria, and I will spell that for you. It is the mitochondria. Keep an eye out for your spelling, guys, because this is quite a tricky word. The next one that isn't shown on that diagram that you should really include is the ribosomes. And the ribosomes are the little organelles inside of the cell that are responsible for making protein. You might remember that from the work that you did on animal cells and plant cells near the beginning of the year. The answer to question 2, what is the pH of a neutral substance? That is pH 7. And do be careful, guys, when you are writing pH. You have to make sure that it is a small p and a capital H. So that would be pH 7 is neutral. Going on to the next question, what colour does blue litmus paper turn when in contact with an acid? And blue litmus paper turns red. Just another reminder, guys, please can you make sure that you have green penned all of your work so that you have got the correct answers for these. Alright guys, let's get on to our lesson and our lesson targets. So number 1, say what the word neutralisation means. Number 2, describe examples of neutralisation, and number 3, which is the challenge, is to explain what happens in neutralisation, but explain what happens in terms of the particles. So say what those particles are doing. I'm now going to read through the text that is found in your work booklets, but I've also just copied it and pasted it onto this slide. So let's get started. When acids and alkalis join together, they cancel each other out. All acids contain hydrogen particles and all alkalis contain hydroxide particles. Now, just before moving any further, I want to explain I would like to explain what this means. This H plus and this OH minus. So the H is going to just be the symbol for hydrogen that you would find on the periodic table. And it's got a little plus sign above it. And all that means is that this hydrogen, because it's got a plus above it, it can attract something with a negative, so a particle with a negative above it. So they are charged. They're what we call a charged particle. And another word for a charged particle is an ion. And take this down, please. Charged particle is called an ion. All right, so just take a minute, make sure that you understand that and that you have copied that down, please. Okay, I am going to remove it now, so if you haven't finished writing it down, if you can, please just pause the video. Right, okay, so these charges are really important. So when we speak about an H plus and an OH minus, you will see that they start to become really important a little bit later on in this lesson. So it's important that you do understand it. And this is why when the H plus and the OH minus join together, they form a compound. And this compound has got 2 hydrogens, because we can see there's one there and there's another one there, but it also has 1 oxygen, which is that one there. And the correct way to write that is to write it as H2O, which is water. So just to summarize so far, what we have got is we know that all acids have got these particles of hydrogen in them, and they are positively charged. That's why they've got the little plus above them. In the example that I've given you, the alkali, which we said was a hydroxide, has got these OH particles in them, and they are negatively charged. The OH and the H plus are attracted to each other because the H plus and the OH minus will attract together because they are opposite charged. It makes water because we have got the 2 hydrogens and we have got the 1 oxygen, 2 hydrogens and 1 oxygen. And this is called neutralization. And now I've got a short task for you to do. It should only take you about 3 or 4 minutes, and you have got a choice of what it is that you would like to do. You can either do task 1, which is the less challenging of the two, and it is a description. So it is describing the diagram that we've got below here. So it says, describe the diagram of neutralization. And that is just saying what you see. That is the difference between a describe and an explain question. So in this question, you are being asked to tell somebody what is happening. So what is happening to the H plus, which is going to be your acid, the OH minus, which is going to be your alkali, and why it is that it then forms the H2O. Okay, so that is a description. If you choose to do the more challenging one, which is the task 2, it's an explain. You have got to speak about the particles. So you need to say things like the hydrogen or the H plus, which is called a hydrogen ion. Let me write that for you. Hydrogen ion, and that just means that it's got a charge next to it, so it's either going to be a H plus or a OH minus. Okay, so what you would be doing is things like you would be saying the hydrogen ions in the acid would react with the hydroxide ions, and I'm going to write that for you as well. Hydroxide ions in the alkali, and together they would form H2O, which is water. But you have to say exactly what happens to those H particles and what happens to the OH particles. All right, guys, I'm going to give you an opportunity to do that. Think hard. It doesn't matter if you don't get it perfectly correct. We do have some answers coming up, but I want you to have a go. Do your best and just have a go. Pause the video now and then come back when you are done. Okay guys, I think that we are perhaps ready now to have a look at some of our answers. So here is a model answer for task 1, and remember that is the describe. So I'm going to read it out, and then what I'd like for you to do is to go over yours in green pen, see if you can add anything in. I don't know, perhaps I've even left something out. Have a look, see how you can improve that answer, and then once you have finished taking down your notes, I want you to try it again. So cover up your work and then try to write the description again. So I will read my model answer to you. The acid is shown as the red liquid inside of the beaker, and the alkali is shown as the purple liquid. I know this because when universal indicator, and that is the dye, if you remember when we put dye into the different solutions, they turn different colours. So that's just what universal indicator is. I know this because when universal indicator is added to a liquid, it will turn red if it is an acid and purple if it is an alkali. The beaker on the right shows that when the acid and the alkali are mixed together, they turn the universal indicator green. And this shows that the solution is now neutral. All right, I'm going to stop it there. You finish off doing what you need to, make your amendments, and then come back when you are done. Pause the video now. Okay. So if you had chosen to do the more challenging task, which was the explain, this is what I would have expected you to have said in your answer. And I'm just going to read it out for you. The beaker with the acid in it has turned the universal indicator red. All acids have got hydrogen ions in them. Hydrogen ions are given the symbol H+. And remember, your H+ has got to be slightly above your H. The beaker with a purple solution in it is an alkali. Alkalis have hydroxide ions in them, OH-. Alkalis turn universal indicator purple. When all of the H+ from the acid and the OH from the alkali have reacted, they form water, which is H2O. And I suppose really you could add in there to say that this is neutralisation. So let's have a quick look at what we've managed to do. So are you able to say what neutralisation means? I think you probably can. Can you describe some examples of neutralisation? Yeah, I think you probably can do that. And we're starting to be able to explain this idea of what happens to the particles during neutralisation. So if you did try the challenge task, I'm going to ask you to pause the video now, go over your work again, make sure that you've got all of the relevant information on there that I've written out there, and then once you've done that, you can carry on and we can move on to the next lot of work. Alright guys, so now what we're going to do is we're going to speak a little bit about mixing acids and alkalis, and again you have got this information in your booklet as well as this pH scale. I've taken it directly from your booklet. So I'm just going to read that to you. Mixing acids and alkalis. As we add an alkali to an acid, and remember that what we mean by an alkali is the OH-, the hydroxide, and the acid is those H+ particles. As we add an alkali to an acid, the molecules in the acid and the alkali react, and that will become less acidic, because if our acid started off as let us say a pH 1, if we were to add an alkali, it will become less acidic, and so it might actually move up the pH scale to become less acidic and move towards the neutral. So it might end up being over there, perhaps a pH 4.5. And that is what the next paragraph goes on to explain. It says, if we were to measure these changes, we would see that the pH increases, and that means that the pH starts to move from being an acid to moving up. It starts to increase because the numbers start to increase. If we use just the right amount of alkali, the solution will eventually become exactly neutral, because what you will have done is you will have ensured that every single H plus ion that is in the acid has been reacted to the exact same amount of alkali, which would be your OH minus ion or your hydroxide ion. So they would each react with each other, and so that there won't be any H plus left in your solution, and there won't be any hydroxide or OH minus left in the solution. It would all have reacted together. And so now let's have a look at some everyday neutralization reactions, because they actually happen all around us all of the time. And I'm going to look at two types of neutralization reactions that we probably are quite familiar with. The first one is sherbet, and you can see the sherbet over there. And all sherbet is, it's a type of acid that we call citric acid, and it's got a weak alkali in it as well called bicarbonate of soda. So we know immediately we're speaking about an acid reacting with an alkali. And we can predict that what is going to happen is we are going to get a neutralization reaction where water will be produced. Okay, so we know that this is going to neutralize. So when you put the sherbet in your mouth, it will dissolve into your saliva, and the reaction will then take place. And what will happen is the alkali will neutralize the acid, and tiny little bubbles of carbon dioxide are formed. And you can see that in the picture below. So over here, I've shown you a picture of it, and you can see the bubbles forming over there. And that is the fizziness that you feel when you eat that sherbet. And that is an example of neutralization. Another everyday neutralization reaction takes place when we brush our teeth. So some foods that we eat are quite acidic, so we will eat things like fizzy drinks and some sweets, and we know that they can cause tooth decay, and that's when your teeth rot. And this is mostly because there's a type of bacteria that lives in your mouth, and they prefer to live in acidic conditions. So when you are drinking fizzy pop, that bacteria is thriving. They are reproducing because they like to have that acidic solution in your mouth. Now, when we brush our teeth, what happens is that it neutralizes the acid in your mouth, making it less appealing for those bacteria to want to stay there, and so they will end up dying off, which is probably a very good reason for brushing your teeth twice a day. Right guys, what I want you to do now please is to take down some notes about everyday neutralization. So I would like for you to write down everything you know. Don't look at the notes. Try to think hard, try to remember as much as you can. And then once you are done, go back, check your notebook, and then add some extra bits and pieces in that perhaps you couldn't remember. Right, and then finally, let's have a look to see how we did against our targets. Can we say what the word neutralization means? Yes, I think you can. It is when an acid cancels out an alkali and water is produced, or the other way around, you can say when an acid and an alkali combine, they cancel each other out, and water is always produced. Some examples of neutralisation. Well, we spoke about toothpaste and we spoke about sherbet. And then can you explain neutralisation in terms of particles? And that is, can you speak about those H plus ions that we find in acids, the OH minus ions, which are called hydroxide, and the way that they attract each other to form water? That is what I would expect you to be able to do to be able to reach the challenge, that explain objective. Right, guys, thank you very much for watching. There's one last thing I would like for you to do. If you have a look over here, you will see that there is a link to a video that I would like for you to watch. While you are busy watching it, please can you take down some notes and any questions that you might have, so that you can go back and have a look, see if you can find the answers to them. Right, year 7, that's it from me for now, and I will speak to you again next week. Bye.